everybody, and welcome to Narativ. We are living through an eerie moment right now. It's reminiscent to me of 2016. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, and Hillary Clinton seemed destined for victory. But in the final days of the election campaign, things started to shift. Exasperated Hillary Clinton declared she had no idea what was going on in the middle of the country. That moment left us watching a conference hall full of balloons refusing to fall on election night. Just as the unthinkable happened, Donald Trump eked out a narrow victory to become the 45th president of the United States. The rest is history, one of the darkest chapters in American history. Now, 8 years later, the situation is quite similar. Are we gingerly tiptoeing towards the same abyss? Let's take a look at some of the evidence. In just a matter of weeks, the promising Kamala Harris campaign has seen its lead over Donald Trump erode. Based on the latest swing state polling data comparing Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in the 2024 U.S. presidential election, the race remains very tight in the key battleground states. Harris maintains a very narrow lead in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Nevada. If she wins these 4 states, she would likely secure at least 276 electoral votes. That's enough to win the presidency, but Trump holds slight advantages in North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. If he keeps all of those, he just needs one of these Harris states, where she is currently leading, to swing his way, and then he becomes the president. The race is essentially a toss-up, with neither candidate having a decisive lead in the electoral college count. Even the slightest shifts in voter preferences over the final weeks could tip the balance. While Harris has an edge of about 2 to 3 points in the national polling averages, the state-level polls that will decide the electoral college remain extremely close. And with over 1.4 million votes already cast, the window for either candidate to gain a clear upper hand is narrowing, with just 28 days to go. Can we be sure that Kamala Harris will win the presidency? Democrats seem stuck in an old paradigm. They've laid out a very convincing case for Kamala Harris, and they are staying on message. That sounds a lot like what Hillary Clinton did in 2016. I'm not saying that Kamala Harris is about to lose the elections, but there is something happening under the surface the Republicans are doing that is beginning to shift the numbers in the polls. Now, we could all bury our heads in the sand and keep doing what we've been doing, but there's a strong chance that won't work. The Republicans have a strategy that worked for them in 2016 and may work again now, very different from the Democrats. Take, for instance, last Saturday in Butler, Pennsylvania. Donald Trump and Elon Musk were headlining a rally. During his speech, Trump reeled off the most audacious list of lies about Kamala Harris you've ever heard.
The damage is so bad, and so it's been done. She let in 21 million illegal aliens from all over the world, from prisons and jails and mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're terrorists at record levels, at levels we've never seen before. She cost you $29,000 a family through inflation price hikes. And now she wants a larger tax hike, and she wants to go the largest tax hike in American history. There's never been a tax hike like what she's proposing. She's going to raise your taxes a minimum of $3,000. She's a big taxer, and she was the original creator of Defund the Police. I think for all the sheriffs over here, if you're a partner in Defund the Police for even 2 days, you cannot be president. But she was one of the founders of Defund the Police, and she still believes that, by the way. I don't know how anybody could, but she still believes that. And if she ever had a chance, there's a good possibility she'd go back to it. Can you imagine? Somebody's robbing our house. Well, there's nothing we can do about it. That's what they say. There's nothing. You know, they tried it. And you know where they tried it? In Minnesota with our vice president. And it wasn't working out too well. It was working out very well for the robbers and the criminals. That's the only one it was working out well for. Kamala Harris vowed to abolish ICE. She wants mass amnesty and citizenship for illegals. And worst of all, she lost, and this is maybe the worst thing in the whole, that nobody talks, the fake news won't mention it. She lost more than 325,000 migrant children that are now dead in slavery or just plain missing, probably never to be seen again, never to see their parents again. But this isn't like, this is 325,000 have been lost. She praised the idea of a 70% to an 80% tax rate. She imposed a natural gas export ban on Pennsylvania, which is killing your energy workers and your pricing. You know, you have one of the highest energy costs in the country, and yet you're sitting on top of a massive amount of energy that she doesn't want to get. It's been a disaster for your state, and she even endorsed free sex changes for illegal aliens in detention at taxpayer expense. This is a takeover of the country. And Kamala Harris is a radical left Marxist. She is a woman that's not respected in Congress. She was rated at the bottom of the U.S. Senate. She's destroyed everything she touched, but the good news is that we have a plan to fix it. We're going to fix it. We're going to fix it fast. Nobody is going to stand for open borders. Nobody is going to stand for a bad military.
Now, I counted about 15 lies. Thanks to Elon Musk, 33 million people watched that live stream on Twitter or X. So, maximum distribution for a massive amount of disinformation. Now, the media has focused mainly about one lie that Trump said during the Butler, Pennsylvania rally. That was about the FEMA funds being stolen and given to migrant workers instead of hurricane relief. As far as I can tell, it's only this lie that the Harris campaign has responded to. Kamala Harris did it on The View today.
Please welcome back the next president of the United States.
Right now, there is a monster storm barreling towards my state of Florida, a place that's still reeling from Hurricane Helene. Trump is lying, claiming that the Biden administration is intentionally withholding aid from the areas where Republicans live, and that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants. Ironically, that is something he did in 2019. What do you think the effect of these lies are, and why is he doing this?
Well, it's profound, and it is the height of irresponsibility and, frankly, callousness. So lives are literally at stake right now. I traveled to Georgia and to North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. In Georgia, I met a woman who, just days earlier, her husband was killed in their home by a fallen tree. Days later, I met with her and her daughter. You can imagine the pain, the shock that they are still in about what they experienced, what they witnessed. I mean, we're talking about real human beings and their lives, and them losing everything. Everything. This woman lost her husband, her child lost her father. People are losing their home with no hope of ever being able to reconstruct or return. And the idea that somebody would be playing political games for the sake of himself, but this is so consistent about Donald Trump. He puts himself before the needs of others. I fear that he really lacks empathy on a very basic level to care about the suffering of other people and then understand the role of a leader is not to beat people down, it's to lift people up.
That skillful answer by Kamala Harris debunks a single lie that Donald Trump told the Butler, Pennsylvania rally on the weekend. But that leaves at least 15 other lies not debunked. 15 heavily charged claims about Kamala Harris roaming uncontested into the zeitgeist. Here's a look at some of those. Trump asserted that Harris caused inflation, raising costs by $29,000 per family. This is totally untrue. He said that Harris let in 21 million illegal aliens from all over the world, from prisons and jails and mental institutions. Totally untrue. And that she lost more than 325,000 migrant children. Totally untrue. That are now dead in slavery or just plain missing. Trump also claimed Harris was one of the founders of the Defund the Police movement and that she still believes in it. Both untrue. He said Harris vowed to abolish ICE, wants mass amnesty and citizenship for illegal immigrants, and endorsed free sex changes for detained illegal immigrants at taxpayers' expense. All of these are completely false lies. Trump characterized Harris as a radical left Marxist who is not respected in Congress and was laughed at there. None of that is true. But coming from a former president and amplified by Elon Musk on Twitter or X, you can see how that kind of story or narrative around Kamala Harris would spread through the internet like wildfire. Here's where we get into the Trump strategy and why it's so effective. Because even if the vast majority of voters, let's say 97% of voters in Pennsylvania, realize that Trump is lying about Kamala Harris, that still leaves 3% that may find him believable. If 3% of swing state Republicans believe just one of those lies, it could shift the result in Trump's favor. If they believe more than one of those lies, it could really be decisive. It could be a landslide, really, if you think about it. So it's very important that the Harris campaign and everybody else focuses on all these lies and debunks them right away. Democrats, as we've said, are running a very disciplined traditional campaign. They're staying on message, and that's good. But Donald Trump and Elon Musk are not running anything like a traditional campaign. Trump's strategy is completely different. It's completely asymmetrical. Instead of running an on-message campaign, he's running an absolute onslaught of disinformation, and it's catching the Harris campaign by surprise, as it did the Clinton campaign in 2016. The battleground for this election, much like in 2016, is not just in the swing states, but in the realm of social media, particularly Twitter. Elon Musk has transformed Twitter, or X as he calls it, into a powerful tool for spreading disinformation. There's mounting evidence that Musk is closely aligned with anti-democratic forces, including the Kremlin. He admits to regular calls with Putin, supplies Russian drones with Starlink internet capability, and maintains close ties with China's leadership. Our recent investigation at Narativ even uncovered that Musk was retweeting Russian-made propaganda directly from Putin's staff. This revelation barely made a ripple in the mainstream media, but it's quite a story. We also recently uncovered that Twitter was actually partially owned by Russian oligarchs and run by Musk, who increasingly appears to be a conduit for Russian disinformation. The ownership by the oligarchs turns what could be dismissed as one billionaire's eccentricities into a serious national security concern. Twitter has become ground zero for the birth and proliferation of conspiracy theories and lies that can sway elections. The Trump campaign, recognizing Twitter's potential, has made it central to their strategy. They're not running a traditional campaign at all. They're running an all-out disinformation blitz. The Butler rally is a prime example of the strategy in action. By leveraging Twitter's reach, they're able to spread lies and misinformation to millions of viewers instantly, potentially swaying crucial swing voters. To counter this threat, we can't simply ignore Twitter or retreat into our echo chambers on the other platforms where we really are only talking to like-minded people. The battle against disinformation must be fought where it originates. And that means re-engaging on Twitter, not to preach to the converted, but to actively dismantle false narratives as they emerge. I've been on Twitter for 8 years fighting this very disinformation war, and I'll tell you exactly what I've learned. Speed is crucial in dismantling narratives. Fake stories can be debunked if they're caught early, but left unchallenged, they spread like wildfire. The Harris campaign needs to recognize this battlefield. Running a disciplined traditional campaign is not going to do it. As it stands, there's a real possibility of a Trump victory in 1 month from now. It's all very reminiscent of 2016. We've learned the lessons about Russian interference and data manipulation from 2016. But as a nation, we failed to act decisively on them. It's not really too late, but we have a hell of a job to do in 28 days. It would be ideal if, like Brazil, the United States banned Twitter. But that's not likely to happen in the next 28 days. That means it's up to us, individual citizens who can actively combat misinformation and disinformation where we encounter it, on social media and in the real world when it shows up. For the Harris campaign, it's just 28 days, but it's not too late to enter the fray of narrative warfare. There are 3 main goals. Dismantle any false narratives as close to source as possible. The whole strategy is about not letting a single lie go unchallenged. For the Harris campaign, it's an opportunity to go on offense in social media. There's plenty of stuff to use against Donald Trump, The battle for democracy is being waged tweet by tweet, narrative by narrative. And in these last 28 days, it's up to all of us to engage in this fight and ensure truth prevails over disinformation. Thank you for watching Narrative tonight. We have a special edition tomorrow night where we'll take a closer look at the polls and help maybe allay some of your fears. All of that is coming up tomorrow night. Thank you for watching Narrative.
One day, you'll tell the story of autocrats, crooks, and kings who came for our freedom. A story of citizens who stood up to tyranny and won. The people prevailed and renewed an old vow to a more perfect union. And that was just the beginning. The story continues. Narrative, where truth lives.